Hello! Reporting live from the writer's room. This is your host Dom for Reliable Narrator, the podcast. Be prepared for chaotic storytelling. Just my kind of nonfiction. Welcome to episode 7. Let's get into this, shall we? Because we have quite some valuable material here to go over for this episode. And as you already know, all of February, I am going to be covering Mineto's new spring issue, Volume 42, The Art of Intention, a generational love letter to our past, present, and future. And so this episode, we're going to be talking about the second story of the print issue, which is the millennial story, The Gamble Against Tomorrow. So yes, we're going to be covering the millennial story and how my nonfiction essays, personal essays, connect back to the theme and the overall message of this entire episode. So The Gamble Against Tomorrow, we're not getting any younger who's sitting at your table. This is written by Jesse Garcia, photographed by Cameron Mason. So this is a very, very good example of not only narrative journalism, but also literary reportage. I just want you to get a sense of what you're in for this episode. I think the creative writing piece really perfectly captures this episode. Christopher Ray, our millennial subject, he wrote this for his creative writing piece. To my younger self, your friendships can be just as valuable as your relationships with family and sometimes even more. Don't waste your energy people-pleasing and changing yourself to fit in. Keep searching for the people who make you feel seen and valued and put those relationships first. And why this is just so expensive and so worthy to me, because the thesis of this entire episode is this. Friendship is a high-stakes gamble against time. We must unlearn the performance of indifference to win the prize of a lifelong chosen family. Today's agenda, after you just got a glimpse of what we're going to be covering, the main topics that are shown in this print story, and as well as with my other essay that connect back to the millennial story, are these topics, okay? And when I say topics, I don't mean we're going to have individual segments for this. I'm just saying this is the stuff that we're going to be thoroughly talking about. So this is the common thread that runs this entire episode. So first is that millennial men ages 29 to 44 are suffering with a loneliness epidemic because they enable surface level male friendships that are built off of convenience. Second, the exploration and the discovery of positive masculine energy, how this millennial story, and as well as the supporting pieces along with this episode, how they are in the embodiment of that, because I think this is a universal longing and feeling for a lot of people. It's a collective consensus that we do need this type of energy more in our world. What I was also saying in episode 4, how we can all function from a place of positive masculinity. It doesn't always have to be men, but it can be us women too. We can actively live and experience with discernment, moving along with discernment, so we don't have to reach the end of a fucking lesson in order to learn from it. The third topic is brotherly love. I talked about this last episode, which I was very, very passionate about. It's a sense of belonging, home, and community, the energy of chosen family. Knowing that you intentionally chose people to be in your circle, inner circle, tight-knit, and those are your people. Those are the people that you can say with your fucking chest confidently and out loud, being yes, you are my ride or die. Yes, you are a lifelong friend. But in doing so, we have to stop performing. Goes along with my next topic. Stop performing and start showing the man beneath it all. In order to do so, we have to play a vulnerable hand with intention. Lastly, friendship is a gamble, mentioned in the title. The fact of there's no guarantee in tomorrow. So by being a friend, it means that you are a dealer of the cards at your table, but also a player as well. I think a lot of people can look at that a little bit differently, being well, I am a player, I am contributing and pitching in, I am participating in it. But at the same time, you have to be also the one reaching out and doing the initiation and checking up on your fucking friends instead of just consuming it all. You have to do those little things as well. So let's go along with talking about Christopher Ray, our millennial subject, he is just the coolest motherfucker ever. He is 34 and he is married. He has a very special story about intentional friends and his journey in discovering that as well. He is still friends with his middle school friends. Like, that is absolutely astonishing to me. He hosts bi-weekly card games at his house. This is where the angle of friendship as a gamble came from, because I think if Chris wasn't a player at all, we probably would have gone a different direction in terms of like talk about platonic friendships and the love that carries along with it in the millennial generation. Let's get into the excerpts now. Ray is no stranger to breaking cycles, as if he's the card dealer and a player at his own table. The careful intention that goes into his current day friendships is a gamble, but fulfills his today and tomorrow with company. Yet this victory wasn't instant. Adult male friendships have the tendency to only scratch surface level when juggling the learned inability to reveal the man beneath it all. Friendships are all cards in, and the fortunate chips of career and family play a factor in the weight of the result. Whatever they put in ultimately makes it slap around the table. Those two paragraphs encapsulate the entire thesis of this entire episode. Especially, friendships that are built in convenience. Picking up that fucking phone whenever you feel like it, whenever you want to show up as a friend. Whatever you are putting into the center of the pot in terms of like the gamble, and all the people at the fucking table need to fucking pitch in. The reason why I say this is more leaning towards the literary reportage side of this issue, because Jess did a fantastic job in structuring the story with insights and with research to back up her thesis and Christopher's story, because these are really, really insightful excerpts. The percentage of men with 6 or more close friends dropped nearly 20% from 55 to 37% from the 1990s to 2020. Seemingly, it would prove helpful for adult millennial men to extend themselves past the social constructs of keeping their emotions tucked away and learn to let anger turn into well-needed tears and beautiful shared laughs. The patriarchy has not been kind to everyone. It takes every individual to break from its heavy constraints. Adult men unlearning these cycles through friendships could allow the start of healing through years of pain. Obviously, the sense of men exhibiting some type of positive masculinity isn't being shown here. To start unlearning those mannerisms and those behaviors and those attitudes. Jess also has this other statistic saying men are the loneliest they've ever been in the United States. 1 in 4 men report being lonely. This can change. What I really love about this story is that not only does Jess put the facts and the statistics right in front of you as soon as you start reading, but it's also being out an optimistic angle to it too. She's calling out what is happening, right? The facts. But at the same time, she's giving out a proactive call to action. Christopher plays a part in this as well, showing through his journey and through his story. He also adds conflict resolution, so to say. Because what Christopher points out early on in his story is that intentionality starts at a very young age. It either builds or breaks you. It trickles on from early adolescence to adulthood. I mentioned this in my friendship episode. There's only so many times you can tolerate destructive male behavior. I'm not even talking about the women that are friends with guys, but also everybody. You can only accept so much of it before it gets fucking old. Because it's really, really, really fucking hard to be friends with a person that can't communicate, who isolates, or even has self-sabotage tendencies. They always make it seem like you are lucky that they're even in your life in the first place, or even at this given time, because at any point they can leave you before you can actually leave them. That takes intentionality as well. I'm saying that the things that you are choosing from early adolescence, from you being a teenager, and then you also doing that same shit as a 20-something-year-old, that's what you're intentionally choosing and doing every fucking time. I'm not saying that people can't change, right? I'm saying that it's really not for the weak, understanding that you've probably been the problem this entire time. I mean, that really takes some guts and courage and years of unlearning to fucking understand that. If they weren't showing signs of positive masculinity at an early age, it's gonna be really fucking hard to start seeing that shit when they're an adult. I'm not saying that it can't be learned or it can't be grown onto them. I think being a loyal friend also goes along with choosing intentionally to look at your friend's potential, knowing the person that they can become. You know that they can become that person, but the only person that is standing in front of them is themselves. Don't fall in love with potential, because it's a waste of time to be giving somebody the benefit of the doubt and wishing and hoping that one day, maybe today, is the day that they finally acknowledge, their destructive behaviors and how it doesn't benefit anybody. So Jess says here, it's through rattled perspectives from one peers and self that leads to a dangerous type of detachment. This brews when young boys are taught generational ideas that can be harmful. However, when you're a teenage boy, those realizations come with time, especially with feelings. It was like, you shouldn't be talking about emotions. You're a man. You need to grow up. We need to suck it up and push forward. And it seems like it's the easiest way, Ray said. Following that, he has this pull-out quote. My friend group and I started cutting off misogynists. Following that, Jess backs this up with a statistic, saying straining cycles like the patriarchy can only be broken when a majority of individuals realize it never fully benefits anyone. Many 20-something-year-old people and their friendships are built off of convenience, because you discover these people and you click with these people for whatever reason via the same place of work, classes, clubs, sports, organizations, in college, but that can also reflect maybe a couple of years prior to that in high school. Another excerpt here saying, when Ray's adulthood hit, he started becoming far more intentional about the people he kept close to him. Friendships with prominent misogyny became abhorrent to keep around. But not only did he take note of this in his friendships, but also his family. He explains that some of his family says some things that are sexist. And in the cookout, he doesn't want to stay in that energy. He doesn't want to be in that environment anymore, so he leaves. It's just that very thing. I think being a friend also includes some type of calling out. If you really cared for that person and you started seeing like how destructive they are and how isolated they become, or, whatever, it's not only not benefiting them, but it's not benefiting like the friend group. I think as friends, have a conversation about that. I'm not saying that. Calling them out, being like, you screwed up, you fucked up, take fucking accountability. I'm saying that in order to break these cycles that are learned, it takes fucking work. And it takes not only accountability, but it takes like verbally communicating that. Because Ray explains in this excerpt, he's nurturing interpersonal relationships with other men, exhibiting the idea that it is okay to stop performing. Brotherly love today, 60 will arrive tomorrow. Time is just slipping away, but his community will have an everlasting outcome onto everyone. Ray's quote here, it benefited my mental health. It's nice to just hang out with people and actually be yourself. That's how it should be at the end. Jess goes along saying, adult systemic cycles intersect in cultivating your inner circle. The intention behind emotional intelligence and availability holds unseen yet critical value. However, learning to take care of each other and the willingness to unlearn stubborn perceptions about how to show up in life, Ray urges others to gamble with vulnerability. It may nurture into beautiful cycles from the younger generation will take note and pass on to their children, which many millennials have already shined a beacon for. So about breaking these cycles and understanding that after all of that change, all of the calling out, all of those kind of conversations, those really tender conversations that are especially needed in terms of like intentional friendships, I think it just takes strong courage and willpower to like understand that throughout time and change and distance, the right people stay for all the right reasons and not out of obligation and not convenience. Because I think generational cycles, they must unlearn to reach intentionality. Again, takes fucking guts. It may take them all your life to unlearn that shit. Are you willing to stay in between that kind of progress and that process that comes along with them realizing like, I do need to change. Like I do need to stop being a fucking, dick. After all of those transformations and transforming from being emotionally unavailable or even having like a big ego or pride, being cold and abrasive, breaking down those cycles, it's not only is a tumultuous process, and at the end of it, you'll see who stayed and who didn't. That was the end of the millennial story excerpts, and I think what's really beautiful is that this story can apply to any generation. You don't have to be a millennial to understand where Ray is coming from and to resonate with his story, but also for the younger and older generations too, is a concept of like, we're not getting any fucking younger. Yet there's still always time to make it right with your chosen family and with interpersonal relations with people, with your family and outside of your family as well. I mean that like Gen Z, we're 20 something years old, we'll reach our 30s, we'll enter that decade one day. The story and its theme is for us too. I hope everybody is asking intentional questions at the end of the story, especially like, are you intentional with your friendships? What are you intentionally choosing to do in your friendships to make it to the next year, to make it to the next month, week, day? Are you investing in your friendship's future? Are these same people going to be in your life when we're entering our 30s? And this also goes along with, you know, the older generation as well too, because it's just so fucking important that the older generation passes on that type of like visible example onto the younger generation, in which that connects back to my nonfiction pieces about breaking cycles and revealing the vulnerable men in friendships exhibit positive masculine energy. Preface saying that, like, how does this go back to the rhetoric of episode 4? How to start believing in our world again? How does this episode and the material connect back? Because I think more than ever right now, we need fucking people. People who need people are the greatest kind of people. Barbara Streisand once said that. So we have to believe Barbara, especially with how everything is going and the pace of the state of the world right now. So the remainder of my nonfiction essays for this episode are essentially like my reflections and just little talking off points. And I'm just going to popcorn from like one essay, one excerpt to the next. It's all going to be like braided into like this type of narrative. 3 Substack essays and my one Between You and Me essay is the exhibit point for today's theme. Intentional people you choose to have in your life, you will always find your way back to each other. I really hope you fucking know that. The people that are meant to be in your fucking life, no matter where you are in your journey with them, being in a very transformative period right now, in like a growing pain and a gray area in terms of intentional friendships, just know that whatever you're going through with them, they're eventually going to find their way back to you for whatever reason. And you need to trust that process. I have 2 brief Substack essays I want to talk to you guys about. So for the purpose of showing honest side of intentional friendships. And just because you invest time and change and embracing distance with this chosen family of yours doesn't mean that it's always going to be sunshine and fucking rainbows all the time. Like, let's fucking be realistic here. It's frustrating sometimes, and it takes hard fucking work to commit and to show up. Because what this millennial story taught us, obviously, was like whatever you put in eventually makes it slap around the table of friendship. You have to be the dealer and the player. You can't just consume all of this like good richness of friendships out of your convenience. You have to be the one putting in something in the middle of the table here. Because everybody eventually gets their fucking share. So in my first brief Substack essay, How Do You Know If You Need New Friends? I wrote this June 2nd of 2025. You know, when you find a group of chosen family, at least for me, I've always associated that with a feeling of home. And that's intentional. It's a place where we can always regroup. We can always come back to each other because we ground each other. We don't forget where we came from and we're all together. So I have this excerpt saying, we all have our differences. Those same differences once became a regroup point for all 5 of us. We somehow, someway, always came back to each other. Now, are we finally at that age where that's what makes us indifferent towards each other? Is that our deal breaker? If I let this disconnection fade, does that mean I am letting the person of who I am with them fade away too? Are these people really going to come to my parents' funeral when we can't even make birthday plans work? It's fucking frustrating sometimes, and I think like these summer Substack essays from the fucking archive really clock it, because I think I had a really hard summer. A lot of things were just changing, and I just wanted to show you that. I think it's just really, really evident when you start feeling that kind of like shift in the dynamic of like in your friend group and starting to get kind of frustrated with how things are going and things are playing out, and like plans aren't always manifesting the way that you want them to. You know, in the second Substack essay, if you can't tell your parents, then it's wrong. But also, whatever you won't tell me, my intuition will. That's just the kind of friend I am. I wrote that just days later, June 18th of last year. And I feel like these excerpts can really speak for themselves and what I'm really trying to say here in terms of like having this really honest and raw scope in terms of like intentional friendships. I say here because we all know the elephant in the room, time. It creates gaps. But back then, it wasn't just easier, it was undemanding. And it's freeing. And you can fall in love all over again with the good old past and not tackle the jaded now. Nostalgia, especially in friendships, can rot from the inside out. The good and the bad, all the unspoken topics, names you don't bring up in conversations, sensitive or tender questions, all the buried bitterness sits along with other skeletons. It's like one annoying, intolerant fucking thing you keep on bumping into and crashing into, and repeatedly you choose not to move it out of your way. Eventually, you're immune to it. You learn to live with it. You learn to walk around it. That's what I mean, is that it's also like the sense of missing them. And that's like the hard, real truth here. And that's okay. With like the distance and with the time, it not only creates gaps, but I think you also start like giving in to the idea of like, damn, like, remember when we were like this? Remember just like a year ago we were doing this, and like now it's just like a whole different playing field now, because it's very, very fucking dangerous to get stuck in the fucking past. I also say this in my next excerpt, saying, I recently expressed to my mother about this grievance. She said that we have to be inclusive with our friends' significant others. It's not just our exclusive friend group. It's not just the 5 of us anymore. She essentially told me her advice was to grow up, was waiting around for them like I was still in high school, like I was still a teenager. Essentially, like, my biggest downfall sometimes is that I still care for people like I'm a teenager. My mom essentially called me out on that. And I really had to understand this question that my mom asked me after her advice. You may want to be inclusive with in your friend group, but do they want that as well? You may want that, but do they? This all goes back to my rhetoric in terms of friendship. If they wanted to, they would, and that takes fucking intention, that takes choice, that takes action, that takes thought behind your decision. And if I followed my mother's advice by being inclusive, this is what it meant to me as a friend. Being inclusive means being her bridesmaid. It means inviting each other to our housewarming parties. It means when I say I'm praying for you, I say it with fucking intention. It means all those late night conversations, talking each other off the edges of life, that fucking meant something. It means that we're past the high school bullshit. We are emotionally mature to take care and invest and nurture this friendship. It fucking means showing up for each other. It precisely means when I say I am here for you, call me, I'm there, you know I mean it. I'm thinking about, like, okay, Sex and the City, of course. They're in their 30s and the 90s, right? But I think of, like, how they were very inclusive. They invited each other out to places with their boyfriends, you know, and, like, that wasn't a problem. Like, they weren't this exclusive, only women type of friend group. Like, they didn't let these relationships overshadow the womanhood that was in their friendship. Again, that takes fucking intention. I think what also Sex and the City taught me too was, like, you don't have to tell your friends every fucking thing that happens in your romantic relationships. You don't. That can be a fucking boundary. You don't have to fucking talk about that shit. Why? Because then your friends start getting emotionally invested, emotionally involved. I think that's really fucking important, and that takes intentionality as well. Like, choosing not to disclose everything that happens behind closed doors with your partner, if it's not harming anybody, of course. Like, so this all connects back to my final and third piece, my all-time favorite Substack essay I've ever fucking written. And it's essentially a love letter to my parents and their best friends. It's a group of 5 of them. It's titled Desire, Lifelong Friendship, to all my friendships from the past, present, and future. I wrote this in the beginning of June last year, so this was prior to the last 2 essays that I just mentioned. My parents' best friends, which have been lifelong friends, they have always been a standard for me in terms of friendship. Like, they were my primary example of how friends should be. And the bar was set very fucking high very early in my life, since I was a fucking baby. So I have in this excerpt, the core, the nucleus, the pit are these 5 people, just a handful of love, compassion, and who I call family. My parents talk about them like they were waiting all their life for them. They were meant to be lifelong friends, as if they knew life before meeting, but never understood how they ever lived without each other. Okay, I definitely see my intentional friendships in my parents and in their best friends and their dynamic and their relationship with each other. They showed me how to intentionally and actively contribute and show up as a fucking friend. The same shit that they do, maintaining their friendship and showing up, I reinforce those very things into my friendships. That has never changed. My parents and their best friends have been friends since their late 20s, which is fucking crazy. They are now in their 60s. One day I'm gonna make a fucking film about them. Essentially, I've always just longed for a friendship like this. I have here in this excerpt the stories that they told me, like they were bedtime stories. How they drank and smoked together on a Sunday because of football season, or just because they needed a day with each other. I remember how the laughs sounded all together in unison on the same wavelength. They blended so well with each other, so attentive, so curious, so interested. Sure, they have spurs where they don't talk, they've normalized boundaries. They somehow, someway always find their way back to each other. After all these years, they show up. They have seen it all versions of each other through divorce, children, milestones, marriage, dating, even seeing each other's demons and angels. We all have friends for different reasons, but I can attest this friendship is the best kind of complex, an absolute collective that is on the same ride, on the same street, going the same direction on this little road trip we all call life. It's crazy how these 5 people shaped my desire for friendship by them simply being human to each other, passionate and committed to each other. It's so fascinating to me how they found each other the first time around. I have a feeling that they will find each other in every lifetime. So I go along in this essay saying, it's always been a fucking privilege and an honor to witness a friendship like this. And especially because as I grew older, I grew more appreciation and I cherished it a whole lot more. Even as my parents got older too, in terms of like life and health, it plays a huge fucking factor. This goes back to the millennial story being like that friendship is all cards in, and the fortunate chips of marriage and life and children and families play a fucking factor in the weight of the fucking outcome. It's obviously evident in my world as I see my parents and their best friends and how, they fluctuate throughout the years and throughout the months. Growing up, I started to realize, I started pushing my parents out the door a little bit more and, to go out to plans when their best friends asked them out. This golden friendship with my parents and their best friends, it's my dad and then my uncle, 3 women, which is my mom, and then my 2 aunts. They are the epitome of being inclusive. You know what I mean? We have 2 married couples. My uncle and aunt were married when they met my parents. My parents were only dating when they met them. Because as I grew older, I saw, the flux of their friendships and how friendships were coming in and out of my life in my journey in terms of finding my intentional people and finding reciprocal people. Because like I said before, I see myself and my friends in my parents and their best friends. And I finally say in this final excerpt, I say to know this friendship is to love the good, the bad, the mundane, the ordinary, because between 38 years of friendship, there's baggage, avoidant topics, raw talks that make you confront issues turned into awareness. After everything, after so many fucking changes within so much time, within so much distance, you're not the same person as you are when you first started this friendship. You go through so many fucking phases, so many versions of yourself. But again, the right people fucking stay. And everything that happened in the past and all the ins and outs, that takes critical fucking awareness to acknowledge the big fucking elephant in the room. And to voice that and to have a fucking conversation about it. Go along saying humanity, vulnerability, rich, happiness, it's all in their eyes. They have found their people, their lifespan, their longevity, their promise in an answered call, late text, drinks and a debrief in the middle of the week. The damn promise that they will be in each other's corner, fighting to fight, rooting for you to kick ass at life. We don't get to choose what family we're born into, but to create our own with friendships is the greatest gift you can invest in. So this final Substack essay went into a deep dive of my parents' best friends and their dynamic and how I wanted that for every single one of my friendships from the past, the present, and the future. It helped me and inspired this Between You and Me column essay, which is Friends to Adults, What Kind of Friend Are You? I wrote this in the summer, a couple of months after writing those 3 Substack essays. in August of 2025. This Between You and Me column essay goes deeper into the process of maintaining friendships in your 20s. It's very direct, it's sharp, and it's cutthroat. It's fucking realistic. And obviously, using my parents and their best friends as a reference point in the opening paragraph of that column essay, these are the people who have been with you since high school or elementary, those who saw all sides of us under fluorescent lights. We may have made an unspoken deal that we're going to be their kids' godparents, even stand in our weddings. We call them a good friend of mine because best friend seems too childish, yet magically true. I go along in the essay saying, are we officially at that ripe age of like our early 20s where we just kind of just normalize that we must love each other from a distance? I say here, I still feel that tug from the string that runs from my body to theirs, or am I just tugging the string myself, standing like a fool, dumbfounded, as I check if something is attached at the other end, when realistically they've let go a while back, naturally. If we are meant to be lifelong friends, and that is the question, then what is a missed birthday? This bond is already tender and sore. I'm only asking, was it ever enough? It all goes back to showing up. If they wanted to, they would. And it's especially hard to find people who will love you no matter what. I was just lucky to find 5 of them. I really love how in the early summer archives, in these 3 Substack essays, show the frustrating dilemma and the tug of war that was between missing my friends and then also like getting really frustrated, and that realistic process, and how this column essay not only is like the byproduct of that, but is accept the fate in terms of where I was at that given time, wherever I was during August with my friends. And I just love like just how candor and how honest I was, and just acknowledging what was happening instead of going through the motions of this entire thing by myself. So this ending segment, I'm finally ending this off here. So what I'm about to go over, sediments that can be repurposed in the bridge that connects us all, which is our world. How to believe in it again, and how to document it, and how to build an archive of life and love and everything in between, because that shit fucking matters. And me writing about it within these 3 Substack essays and the Between You and Me piece is just my way of documenting the realistic side of intentional friendship. It goes back to the theme, how we will always find our way back to each other, you know, and to trust the process and to keep the fucking faith. And the same way that the Gamble Against Tomorrow, the Prince story, from Jess's writing to Cam's visuals, and especially Chris's story, is all their individual way of documenting this timeline of intentionality in friendships for the millennial generation. These pieces and their context will always be relevant. The Gen Alpha kids, which are the millennials' children, will be 30 one day. As for the older generation, my parents and their best friends, they were 30-something-year-olds once in their life as well. So they can relate to, you know, Chris and the positive masculinity that is exhibiting through these pages. And I don't think you can have a 40-some-year-old friendship and not exhibit some type of positive masculinity in that. That goes for everybody in that fucking friendship. The older generation can attest, and they are evidence that they have lived through the tumultuous frustrations of maintaining your friendships in your 20s, because they've been through that as well. And how positive masculinity is something worth investing time and change and embracing distance into your friendships for the purpose of lifelong friends. It's never too late to start today. Start now to play a fucking hand in your friendships, because there is no promise of tomorrow. So say the shit that you need to say today, because the moment will never come again, and if it does, it won't come the way that you want it to. All the grievances that I expressed in my Substack essay and the frustration in the column essay, should I have expressed that to my friends? Sure, but I did. Not through writing. I fucking picked up that fucking phone and I talked to them about it. You know, at the end of this, I really want you to like have like this really introspective, thought-provoking moment to reflect on this episode. First of all, like, what kind of friend are you? You know, like, are you the kind of friend that is exclusive with your significant other and your lifelong friends? Do you invite your boyfriend or your girlfriend out with your friends? Do your friends tell you to bring them as your plus one when going out? Do you disclose everything that goes on in your romantic relationships with these intentional people? Would you even sacrifice a lifelong friendship because of your partner's boundaries? Do you talk about the tender questions and the unspoken past even when it does hurt? Essentially, we aren't getting any younger, so have you picked up that fucking phone? We may be 20-something right now. It's in a blink of an eye when we're going to be entering the decade of our 30s. And are we still going to be doing the same fucking high school shit that we used to do at 17? Are we still going to fucking tolerate that shit? And the list just goes fucking on. Like, all of these actions, or the lack thereof, is something a person does or doesn't do, and that's something that they are choosing intentionally. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you keep fucking around, then you're gonna eventually end up alone. Like, so what's the fucking point of life if we aren't able to share it with intentional people? To have a fucking witness to your life. This all goes back to brotherly love. It does not shine if you don't give it fucking life. One has to feed it, nurture it, in order to be reciprocated, and the cycle fucking continues. I think it's all a general consensus that we do need more positive masculinity in our world right now. This is relevant to everybody in a friend group and in friendships. You know, stop performing, stop acting like you don't fucking care, stop saying I don't know or I'd rather not talk about it to get out of true and raw conversations with your fucking friends. So play a hand in the gamble of friendship, and with your chosen people, with your chosen family, with intentional people. You know, it's the same people that are sitting at your fucking table right now. And see what the fuck happens. Fuck around and find out. Again, whatever you put into it is exactly what you're gonna get served right back. If nothing changes, nothing fucking changes. That is why I wrote what I wrote, and why this millennial Prince story means so fucking much to me and will always mean a lot. I know that when I'm fucking, I don't know, 37 years old, I can look back at it and I can say, you know what, yeah, I did follow what Christopher told me in this fucking story, and it came out for the better. I will see you all next Friday when I talk about the first Prince story in the issue, which is you have a single subject from the baby boomer generation, her story about self-love. I'll see you all next Friday. Thank you guys.